I wanted to particularly start with a gentleman named Steve Reeves.
Ooh.
And you know him well. So tell me a little bit about Steve Reeves, what you know about him, and then I want to know your thoughts on his physique.
You know, he's pre-Shawn Ray, right? He goes back in the days, but I don't think there was a man or a woman that didn't want that. I mean, that look personified.
A man or a woman who didn't want that.
Yeah, I'm saying, if you're a guy, you want to look like that, and if you're a woman, you want to have that.
Yes.
Steve Reeves personified exactly what a complete physique looked like. Tiny waist, the flaring shoulders, the nice full rib cage. His legs were decent, and his calves, by today's standards, they'd be considered small, but he was very proportionate, and he's a taller guy. He's a 6-footer.
Yeah.
Became an actor. He was very marketable. This is what Joe Weider would want to push in the magazines. And of course, following Steve Reeves, the next great emulator of that was from my era, and that would have been Bob Paris in 1983. That's the year I started bodybuilding. And Bob Paris had a training partner named Roy Littlemeyer back in 1982 as he prepared for the 83 Nationals. And Bob was a knockoff of Steve Reeves. It was a throwback.
Yeah.
Steve Reeves opened that door, and I'm sure Bob Paris along the way studied the way the guy wore his hair, the kind of clothes he wore. The posing trunks were a lot different. They're more along the lines of the classic physique division we have today. Bigger in the waist, but I mean, if you put regular bodybuilding posing trunks on Steve Reeves, he could be right in the mix today, even though that physique is 50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
Definitely movie star good looks and the physique to match it.
Yeah, I think the movie star component is probably part of what sparked people's interest in wanting to look like this.
Sure.
I mean, being in the Sandals and Swords films and people seeing him in
Hollywood's bright lights, man. Yeah.
I think that all of a sudden it's kind of like social media is today, right? You see a physique and then you see how people respond to that physique, and then, oh, I want that physique.
Well, the crazy thing for Steve is that, he wasn't doing that for money.
Yeah.
Right? The guys today are looking $600,000 for the Mr. Olympia.
Right.
You don't get that at the smaller shows, but when you're training, you're dreaming of that. That's the end game, right? I want to be the next Mr. Olympia, not only this elusive Sandow, but the financial component, and then the other things that you can make money from. Steve Reeves wasn't looking like that to make money. This was something that was in him. It was a passion. He didn't have a blueprint of other athletes that looked like him to follow behind. He was one of the original cats that opened the door for all of us to follow. And he did it right. Like, this is a physique that you'd see like in Greece, right? Or like in the Roman Empire, a gladiator. And he played it to the hilt because Hollywood liked that. Yeah. It played to his strength, and they embraced him. He was, even in his old age, he was going to shows like the Arnold Classic, and he was hanging out with the boys like Jack LaLanne, and we knew who he was and what he looked like and what he did, and it was always impressionable on the way we perform, on the way we pose. I mean, just that standing, relaxed pose, that's a pose that we do today on the Olympia stage. I know. And that's a natural looking, relaxed pose. Yeah. He nailed it back then, and he had nothing to compare that with.
I know, that's the thing that I have a hard time wrapping my head around, because like, to know that like a small waist and an X frame would be aesthetic. A lot of people, when they start training, they just think, oh, just put muscle everywhere, and they don't really necessarily think about the aesthetics. I think we've seen so many aesthetic physiques that we don't realize where it all started. Who really thought of those lines in the very early days.
Well, don't get it wrong. There's a lot of people that would love to look like Steve Reeves. They didn't know how. The magazines were just barely coming out back in those days, but people were doing strongman stuff. Yeah. And so the big, bulky, chunky guy was revered at the time because they're an anomaly. There weren't a lot of them. And the way you show your strength was how much you can lift. Right. But showing your physique the way he was at the time he was doing it, he was a unicorn, and he was doing it on a different level because he had the right genetics and proportions, which really takes your eye from looking at a big, chunky, strong man to looking at an aesthetic physique like Steve. He didn't overdo it.